Good morning all. Here I am in my park again. Brian of London here in Tel Aviv, in the park. So, I don't know if many of you saw yesterday the wonderful fake science publications. So I downloaded and looked at actually the original papers. Just to sum, because I'm not going to do the video on that. You can go find tons of videos on it, but essentially these three researchers spent a year writing fake social sciences papers generally for the field of science, which they called grievance studies. And I mean, these were just preposterous papers that got reviewed and accepted and published in actual leading journals in these ridiculous fields of gender studies and diversity and crap. I mean, stuff like, if a man masturbates whilst thinking of a woman without asking the woman for permission, that is a sexual attack on the woman. And dogs humping, what you can learn from watching dogs hump in dog parks, and just crazy stuff. And why do men not masturbate anally enough? And just... Oh, and then into gender studies, into a female feminist one, they took one chapter of Mein Kampf and rewrote it in a feminist language, and that was accepted and published. Just nuts stuff. But I linked it in a tweet, and I said, you have to understand this. This is Palestine. Why is that the study? Why is it related to the entire field of the... I've only got one hand, so I can only do Palestine, like John Bolton. I'll be brief here today. I'm not doing a long video. The point is, as these three have utterly and devastatingly showed, the entire fields of social studies have been captured by the ultra-far left. And it's no exaggeration to say that in the same way, every academic field that has been attacked by the far left, if they've captured it, they're all the ideas, everything that it's built on is lies. Lies, perversions of the truth, inversions of the truth, what Melanie Phillips called the world turned upside down. And the cause of the state of Palestine is exactly the same. It's an inversion, it's a perversion, it's an inversion of what is reality. The reality is Jews and Judaism are indigenous to Israel. The perversion, the upside-down twist, is that there were an indigenous Palestinian people who we replaced. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The Palestinian state was an invention. It is just as much of an invention of the 50s and 60s and the Russians and their Israel. That was the Soviets, not the Russians. The cause, the Palestinians as a people, as a state, is an invented cause that was invented about the same time as these gender studies departments were getting off the ground and inventing a reason why they had to go and study dogs humping in dog parks, or saying that astronomy is a patriarchal system and that the only way that the study of astronomy can be made better is by including feminist astrology into it. That's exactly the same as telling me, sitting here, that Judaism isn't what grew up in this land, and that there is some Muslim Arab link to Israel, except by the fact that they conquered it with an army and took it and colonized it. And so that was what I was getting at in the little tweet I put out yesterday. Anyway, the science work is well worth looking into if you've got half a mind to. I was a scientist. I did a PhD in physics. I used to read research papers. Sometimes I would take days to read a single research paper, to study it, to read every paragraph, to understand the meaning of the authors, to verify with my own little calculations in the side that what they were saying made sense. And they did, usually. And that was how we advanced science. But the idea that these papers were read by reviewers, passed by reviewers, then published in journals, and nobody noticed, it just says that the entire area of study, and these papers were good. I mean, from a technical point of view, they contain tons of references to other papers in the field. They're meticulously detailed. The language is exquisite. I mean, just open any of them, the actual papers, not even just the abstracts. You just read paragraphs, your eyes will cross over. They are just total junk, but brilliantly written junk. An amazing piece of work, but we live in a world, and if you think scientific papers, and if you think scientific journals should be harder to fool, can you imagine how easy it is to fool the New York Times or Associated Press Television News? Exactly. Point. And in fact, Richard Landers published a great article yesterday as well, which I'll link to, about the genesis of the Pallywood fake news, and how the world's press was so willing to publish pictures and film that really they all knew were staged. And that was back in 2000. It's only gotten worse. Anyway, a short one today. I'm still in the park. This is Tel Aviv Bereshit Forest near Park Hayakon. I'm Brian of London, and thank you very much for tuning in, and until the next time, have a great weekend, everybody.